Hello, it's Average Row, and welcome to Mass Effect. Now, real quick, if for some reason you've never heard of this game series, just a real quick rundown. It's a third-person shooter, sci-fi RPG, I feel like is the best way to describe it, and there are 3 total games in the series. And without getting into it too much, this is one of those games where you're given the freedom to make choices as you play through it, and those decisions and choices that you make can have ripple effects throughout the entire series. So things you do in Mass Effect 1 can affect your playthrough of Mass Effect 3. You know, this game series has won multiple awards, and it's generally regarded as one of the best video game series ever. You know, it's just a very beloved franchise. And Mass Effect is my personal favorite video game series that I've ever played. So when I created my YouTube channel, I knew that I wanted to include some sort of Mass Effect related content somehow. I've beaten this series the whole way through multiple times, so it's going to be a little different this time around than a typical Let's Play that I would have on my channel, because there's going to be no commentary, and I'll touch a little more on that in a bit. You know, these games are such a massive undertaking that I wanted to give people who don't necessarily have the time or the money, or are just flat out lazy, a chance to experience these games, because in my personal opinion, Mass Effect is a video game series that everyone who calls themselves a gamer needs to experience one way or another. So my objective is to create the best viewing experience as possible for you guys. You know, I want you guys to pretty much just feel like you're watching TV, which again is why this is a no commentary playthrough. So if for whatever reason you've never played these games, this playthrough will hopefully be a good alternative to taking the time and money required to fully experience the Mass Effect trilogy. And there are a few reasons why I'm pretty confident in that. Using whatever knowledge I've gathered over the course of my multiple playthroughs of the game, I've taken the time to analyze every option for every big and small decision throughout the entire trilogy, and have come up with what I believe to be the best playthrough of the series. A playthrough that, in my opinion, crafts the best, most coherent and enjoyable story with what the games have to offer. And by big and small decisions, I'm talking about everything from what outfits to wear, what weapons to use, what order to complete all the missions, and even which characters to spare or sacrifice. And another reason is I'll be cutting out a lot of stuff in order to streamline the playthrough to keep it as interesting and engaging as possible for you guys. Which means there's going to be less focus on certain gameplay aspects, such as little side missions that don't really contribute to the overall narrative, upgrading stats, buying or selling weapons, and the dreaded planet scanning in the sequels. You know, this all allows us to focus more on crafting the story, because in my opinion, especially if you're not going to be physically playing the game, the best part of Mass Effect is getting invested in the characters and discovering the dangerous secrets that the narrative has for us. And lastly, I purchased all the DLC for the Mass Effect trilogy, both cosmetic and actual narrative stuff. So that means I have access to everything from cool outfits, exclusive weapons, and even entire side quests that really enhance the story. So I just want to pause a bit to go on record and say that I know there's no best way or no optimal way to play through the Mass Effect series. You know, this is just my personal opinion. You know, I'm sure there'll be some of you who might question some of the decisions that the commander makes as you guys watch the videos, and I know there are people who've beaten the games already that will definitely disagree with some of the bigger decisions. You know, but that's one of the things I love most about these games. Everyone has their own way of playing through the game and their own opinion on what the best story is. So I just want to emphasize that Mass Effect is best experienced actually playing it and making the decisions yourself instead of watching someone make them for you. So I highly advise, after watching my own canon playthrough of the game, you go and play through it yourself and explore the galaxy on your own and craft your own personal story. But before we move on, be sure to like this video, hit subscribe, and click the bell icon so you can stay up to date with all the videos that I release in this series. Alright, with all that introductory stuff out of the way, we're going to create our character now, as I give you a little more information specific to Mass Effect 1. Alright, so a quick summary of how the game works as we create our character. We play as Commander Shepard, and there are 3 specific traits that define your Commander Shepard that we will get to select during character creation. That's gender, morality, and class. And I'm going to get into each trait as we reach the related customization section. So what we end up choosing in the next few sections will drastically affect the gameplay for the rest of the series. So I just want to remind you all that I'm making these decisions based off of what I feel like makes the best story, not necessarily what's the most fun or enjoyable option. And I'm not going to really be explaining my rationale for these decisions. You know, maybe I'll upload an extra video sometime explaining all of my choices, but for now we're just going to create our Commander Shepard. So let's go ahead and click Enter New ID. and we are going to do the male shepherd. Now, although I will say I do really enjoy playing as female shepherd, mainly because her voice actress, Jennifer Hale, is super talented and really brought a lot to her role. But we're just going to go male.
Please log in.
And we're just going to keep the first name. It doesn't really matter. Low key.
Warning, data corruption detected. Please reconstruct profile. Confirm pre-service.
Alright, so now's a good time to talk about the morality system in Mass Effect. So the choices we make throughout the game will affect what's called our moral alignment. So based on our decisions, we start leaning towards what's called the Paragon path or the Renegade path. And Paragon is kind of like the quote-unquote good path, whereas Renegade is the more, not necessarily evil, I'd say, but more morally ambiguous. He's a little more, not a jerk, but a jerk, basically. So the more Paragon or Renegade you are, the more dialogue options and mission objectives you unlock. So if you're a Paragon-leaning Commander Shepard, there's a lot of Renegade pathways through the story in the game that you miss out on, and same vice versa. So right now, we're kind of determining our origin for our Commander Shepard. So like where he came from and how he became the commander that he is today. And the first part of that is pre-service history. And basically our choices right now will determine what bonus morality points that we're going to start the game with. So depending on what you pick, you could start the game with a lot of Paragon points or Renegade points or maybe a little bit of both. But for this playthrough, we are going to go for our pre-service history, Earthborn. And it says here, you were an orphan raised on the streets of the great megatropolises covering Earth. You escaped a life of petty crime and underworld gangs by enlisting with the Alliance military when you turned 18. Let's go ahead and click that.
Confirm psychological profile.
Alright, so now this is the psych profile. This is kind of like your military experience, I'd say. And we're going to be going war hero. So it says here, early in your military career, you found yourself facing an overwhelming enemy force. You risked your own life to save your fellow soldiers and defeat the enemy despite the impossible odds. Your bravery and heroism have earned you medals and recognition from the Alliance fleet. So I will say that the Earthborn option for the pre-service history isn't the full Paragon option, whereas the War Hero for the Psych profile is. And despite not picking both of the Paragon origin options, this will be a Paragon playthrough. And I have done a few playthroughs as a Renegade, and it is really fun. It's very, very different. But I do feel like the best story comes from the Paragon route, so that's what we're going to be going with.
Confirm military
Alright, so now the final part of our character creation is our class. And after a lot of thinking, I have landed on the Soldier class as the best class for Commander Shepard in terms of story. Now, I wouldn't say the same for gameplay. I'd probably go with something like Vanguard, but definitely in terms of story, Soldier is the best way to go in my opinion. And Soldier gets a bad reputation among the Mass Effect community because a lot of people say it's boring when compared to the other classes, but I wouldn't really say that, It says here, soldiers are combat specialists ideal for the front lines of a firefight. Soldiers get improved health, can train in the use of all weapon types, start with the ability to use medium armor, and can specialize in heavy armor. So you get the best armor, the best weapons, the most health, and it's still really fun to play. So let's just go with Soldier. I hope you all will enjoy that.
Confirm facial identification.
And we're just going to go the default
Profile
appearance here.
complete.
Alright, so we are John Shepard, Earthborn, War Hero, Soldier. So before we finally get started, I'm just going to briefly mention what I feel are the 3 key gameplay components of Mass Effect 1. And yes, I know this has been a lot of talking, but hey, this is a no commentary playthrough, so once you make it through this intro, you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. Mass Effect can be a little overwhelming at first if you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, so I'm just trying to make sure that you all are prepared to a certain degree. Alright, so anyway, the 3 key gameplay components of Mass Effect 1 are combat, dialogue, and customization. Now, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we're not really going to be focusing too much on customization. Just know that as the game progresses, Shepard's going to be collecting items to customize his armor and his squad mate's armor, and he's also going to be earning experience points to level up his stats. I'm going to be pretty much doing most of that behind the scenes, though. It is an important part of the game, but it's not really related to the story at all, because honestly, that stuff comes down to personal preference, so it doesn't really matter in terms of the story. Honestly, the combat and graphics are a little bit dated by today's standards. This game came out over a decade ago. Although it is vastly improved in the sequels, Mass Effect 1 combat, it's just a little clunky and unrefined, but it's still fun to watch, hopefully. And really where Mass Effect 1 shines is the dialogue, talking and interacting with the cast of characters and learning about the lore. The dialogue plays a huge part in the world building, and in my opinion, it's the most enjoyable part of the game. Alright, so that's enough from me. I just want to say that it's really incredible how BioWare was able to create such an amazing and epic story to take place in a truly living and breathing galaxy that they crafted. And I can't wait to go on this journey with you all. So, one last time, if you haven't already, like this video, hit subscribe, and click that bell. And that's all I got. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy Mass Effect.